You know what was bouncing around in my head when everything that went down yesterday, and I'm a big believer in, just especially when it's an emotional thing, go get a night's rest. By the end of yesterday, I was flat exhausted, and it had way more to do. It wasn't about basketball, for sure. But sometimes I hate forming opinions in the second half of the day because the day is beating you up, and you got all this stuff going on. So get a night's sleep, fresh in the morning. What do you think? And I started thinking and reading a little bit more about these draft picks they picked up, and we hope that they might be joining us here within the next couple of hours. It's Willard and Dibs. Glad you're with us. Remember when the Warriors lost to the Lakers, Draymond, Steve Kerr, and others went straight to the press conference afterwards and stated this was not a championship team. I think what they meant was this was not a smart team. We tried. Damn, we tried. Because we've been a championship team in the past. Just about everybody in this room, outside of the DiVincenzo's of the world, right? A few pieces. Outside of that, these are all players who have been a part of a championship locker room before, but for whatever reason, we weren't a championship team this time around because we tried to get everybody to play smart, selfless basketball, and in the end, y'all, we couldn't do it. And so every move they've made since that point has been an effort to be a smarter basketball team, even though maybe less dynamic.
Well, smarter by getting one of the smarter players in the association in Chris Paul for a guy who is young and maybe more driven by his own agenda, Jordan Poole. And Jordan Poole's a great scorer and he's a great individual player, but I don't know if he necessarily fits with the way the Warriors are trying to play basketball. And the draft picks, we don't yet know. But one thing that I do like about the draft is they got a 23-year-old. And I was telling you before, I don't really care who they pick in terms of the draft, but I think that they're going to look for guys who aren't teenagers. And yes, they got Podziemski, who is 19 or 20. He's only 2 years out of college. He's a younger player. But then in the second round, you get a guy who is absolutely more established. He's 23, and he played 4 years in the Big Ten. So he's a guy who you could rightly plug in and say, all right, you are established as a person, and you can come in here and fit our system. And at 6'9.5", a guy who can rebound, he can block a shot. He is not going to be ball dependent in terms of trying to score. He's a little bit like Kevon Looney, maybe a little bit more athletic. I don't know if he has the same ability to set screens and be as much of a fit, but he strikes me more of a Kevon type of player.
It wasn't an accident. I agree with you. That's not an accident.
No.
When we hear the Warriors immediately say we need to get more experience, we need people who are understanding the team concept, pass, defense, rebounding, all of the things they talked about, and then they trade into the second round to pick up a 23-year-old. Not an accident. Not an accident. And so that's kind of why I struck the chord I did yesterday. Still don't love the trade. Not a Chris Paul fan. Was hoping for a different ball player in return for Jordan Poole. So I'm not like all of a sudden bullish on, this is going to work. But I understand the trade. There's the results, but there's also the concept. I really don't love the results. I do love the concept. And the concept for the Warriors was we need not just experience, we need willingness. We need people who are willing to do the things that we do here. And I've got new questions over whether or not Chris Paul is going to be willing to be a very different player. But they clearly think that he is. And so that is, for me, when people talk about, oh my gosh, Jordan Poole, a future star, and 20 points per game, and all of these things, it's all empty numbers. It's empty calories. It didn't work within the team concept. They were clearly rubbed raw by the whole thing by now. And so you go a different direction and grab people who you think are just going to get on board. Because when you have a core like they do, in some ways, that's all you need. That's all you need. You just need people who are going to get on board.
You need veterans, and I thought that when they decided that they were going to stick with Draymond Green, and they're hoping that Draymond Green signs, and we won't know for the better part of a week. In a week, they're have the free agency officially open and Draymond Green can field all the offers he wants to field, I would imagine before next Friday, he will have a good idea of all the offers that are out there and he'll be able to decide what he wants to do. He probably already knows right now what the interest level is of the Kings, of the Lakers, of the Warriors, of whatever other team is out there who might want Draymond Green to be a part of it. I don't think that he's going to go into next Friday blind, but I do think that the Warriors made all the moves they made yesterday, knowing pretty much with certainty that Draymond is going to be coming back. And if they offer Draymond 3 and 90 and somebody else offers him 3 and 100, I think that Draymond will at least give them the chance to match that and bring him back. I don't think that Draymond's going to leave them high and dry, because if the Warriors don't sign Draymond Green, they can't sign anybody to replace Draymond Green at that price point.
Yeah, I don't. There's an interesting dynamic being played up here with the whole Sacramento Kings angle. And he is, like Brian Windhorst, who said this earlier on ESPN, he's not wrong with the opinion that he's sharing right here.
Kings can now go hunting for Draymond Green if they wish. And that would be extraordinarily interesting, because it is the exact type of player that they need.
I love that it's not just opinion, but the minute it's shared, it turns into a fiesta. We got a full-blown rave that breaks out as soon as he mentions that Draymond Green and the Sacramento Kings might be a good fit.
Yes, it's a party. It's a party, and Brian Windhorst is not the host of it, but he's certainly a treasured guest, because Brian Windhorst got his job where he is now because he happened to know LeBron James when he was in high school. And LeBron James has an agent who he also has known, and I'm sure Brian's known the agent, Rich Paul, for as long as LeBron has.
For sure.
And they happen to also be Draymond Green's agent. So let's take this report with more than a grain of salt. Let's take it with a Costco-sized 15-pound bag of salt, because Windhorst is reporting on this, whether it's factual or not, and he's not saying that, hey, the Kings have reached out. It's not a factual report. All he's doing is casting into some question the fact that Draymond Green might go to the Kings.
I think
my friend LeBron, whose friend Rich Paul happens to be his agent.
I think the Kings absolutely. Brian's right. Draymond would be the perfect player for them.
Right, but sure Brian also is doing this. He's doing Rich Paul's bidding.
Right, they want to get a few more $1 million.
Right,
yeah. But would Draymond actually do that? I think no. Did you notice yesterday on social media, once the draft was done, there were a lot of the Warriors reporters that are like, okay, after today's moves, here's the roster. Here are the official players under contract for the Warriors. And every one of them had Draymond in there. I'm like, I understand where you're coming from an official perspective, which is that he can't opt out until he opts out, but he's opting out, and therefore he's actually not on the roster. But everybody had him on the roster. Every single person who covers the Warriors closely has stated the same thing. They'd all be shocked.
Yeah.
And I mean shocked if Draymond's not on the Warriors, and you can also hear it in the way the Warriors are talking. Why would they say out loud, we can't win a title without him, if they thought they were going to lose him? So I'm not knocked off kilter by this report, by this suggestion at all.
I'm not knocked off either, but I know exactly what it is. And, of course, the Kings would be interested in bringing in Draymond Green, because they are a defender away from being a top 3 team. And I know they were a top 3 team last year, but not really. But if they have Draymond Green, the only thing Sacramento didn't do last year was defend. And I just laugh at the notion of the report, because what do we know about Draymond Green in the Kings series? Well, he intentionally stomped on the torso of a Sacramento King by the name of Domantas Sabonis. And you could say, oh, where was he supposed to put his foot? We did a whole show on Stompgate. He stomped the dude out.
They were both out of line. So was he.
Whatever. So he's going to go to Sacramento.
Hung on
he's
to him.
going to stomp onto Sabonis and, hey, Domas, let's be locker mates.
I don't know. We've seen
weirder
things. I'm not buying
the Windhorst report at all.
Chris Paul and Steph Curry don't like each other.
Right, but I don't think either one of them ever stomped on the other one in an intentional manner.
Not on a court.
Sure.
But who knows what's happening at a party.
Windhorst is doing Rich Paul's bidding, and I know that we all want to, use it as content, and it is content, and he's right. Draymond Green could also go to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they need a defender as well.
Wow.
He could go to Dallas. He could go to the Clippers. He could go anywhere he wants if he's a free agent.
Right, but those teams don't all have the cap space.
Sure.
Nor are all of them contenders.
Right.
Sacramento actually makes a lot of sense, except for one problem. They're not the Warriors. And that's the problem.
And LeBron doesn't play for Sacramento.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a chance at all that Draymond's off the Warriors. Could be wrong, but I think I'm right about this. Brandin Podziemski is going to join us in about 3 minutes.
Good.
Okay. First-round draft pick for the Warriors last night. Will be on with us here in just about 3 minutes. Get over to YouTube. Check it all out. YouTube.com/957 The Game. Let's take a phone call until Brandin calls. How about Joe in San Mateo? Hey, Joe, you on with Willard and Dibs. What are you doing, Joe?
Doing good, guys. Just want to kind of chime in on the trade. I love the trade. I'm kind of actually surprised at some of the media people I respect in the Bay Area and kind of going the other way on this. I mean, Mark, you hit it right. Jordan Poole was he wasn't just an empty calories player. I mean, he had the lowest basketball IQ I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this guy is just he has to be off the team. And I think people are trying to pile on Draymond Green like you usually want to. Oh, he leveraged him. I think I heard like Larry Krueger on his podcast said that, but trying to leverage the Warriors, blah blah blah. But I mean, people need to ask themselves if Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, more like Curry, really wanted to pull on the team, will he be traded? No. And then and also the punch, people blame Draymond Green for it. I mean, look, as close as Draymond and Klay and Curry were together on that team, I mean, I have a theory. I mean, I think it's kind of proven now. I mean, that punch was probably sanctioned by Curry and Thompson.
Well, no, I'm not going to. We're not
Wow.
going that far, Joe. Thanks. Look, it was out of line. This is one of the hardest things to talk about all year long when it goes that direction, where you can say, like I believe, there was much more going on behind the scenes with Jordan than we know about, and people go, "You're blaming him for being punched." No. There's no excuse for Draymond doing what he did.
And you can't say that it was sanctioned, but you can look at the reaction of those in the gymnasium that afternoon.
There you go.
And there was not a ton of rushing at Draymond and trying to restrain him after the fact.
There's no excuse for it, but that also doesn't mean that there aren't reasons or different things that led to it, right? Again, I don't think something like that happens, and that's the baseline and the starting point. It's not like there wasn't something from a relationship standpoint that led to that. So, but that's an overreaction at a minimum.